What's up and welcome back to the Kind of Funny Screencast. We're about to break down the Succession finale.
Ooh-wee.
Not just the season finale, but the series finale. I can't believe it is gone forever. Of course, I'm Tim Geddes. I'm joined by the Big Daddy himself, Greg Miller.
Hello, Tim.
It's Christmas in May.
Close. It's almost
Joey
June.
The Tom girls are winning.
Rounding out the crew today, we have the Nitro Rifle, Andy Cortez.
Hello, everybody.
Woo! Lot to talk about today right here on youtube.com/kindafunny or podcast services around the globe. You can search for Kind of Funny Screencast and we'll be right there for you. In just a few short weeks, we're about to be doing weekly breakdowns of Marvel's Secret Invasion starting at the end of June. So you're going to definitely want to subscribe there. And if you want to support us even further, you can go to patreon.com/kindafunny where you can get the show ad-free and a whole bunch of amazing bonus content like Kind of Feudy. A fun preview episode of Kind of Feudy is going to be going up for everybody that doesn't subscribe on Patreon later this week to give you a little taste of what you're missing. I know a lot of people are like, you guys always talk about this. I don't know what it is. You're going to get your chance to check that out. youtube.com/kindafunny. It's a banger episode.
Banger.
Maybe some injustices in this one.
No.
But,
So good.
Never.
you're going to have to check it out yourselves. Shout out to our Patreon producers, Nathan Lamoth, James Hastings, and Casey Andrew. Today we're brought to you by BetterHelp, but we'll tell you all about that later. We did the Succession Season 4 premiere, Greg.
We sure did, Tim.
About 8 weeks ago. 9 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago.
Say 10 weeks because
Yeah.
this is episode 10, right?
Yeah.
So that probably checks
Yeah.
out. That's how time works.
And originally it was supposed to be this whole crew here, but something happened and you guys weren't able to join us. So Simon Carty replaced both of you. And it was great having him, but I'm excited to have you all here today. Andy, I want to start with you. What did you think of the finale?
Man. I mean, it was heartbreaking. It was what you expected. And it was like watching a Game of Thrones episode where too many nice things happen and you know that something really bad is about to happen down the line. They set you up just to knock you down. But it ends a masterful show where I can't think of any episode that I went, that was kind of a weak episode. Let's wait. Hopefully next week's is better. It was just constantly giving you great drama, great writing, amazing character dynamics. I thought this finale was pitch perfect and what we deserved, honestly, as viewers.
Joey.
I love this show. I am so happy that they've nailed it out of the park with the final season in general. The fact that we got this entire story in 4 seasons is so crazy. But yeah, from the moment this episode starts, you're like, Shiv, stop talking, stop doing it. And they give you every possible scenario within reason to expect in this episode. And even though you're rooting for everyone and no one deserves it, you want them to win. You can't help but root for these awful, terrible people, every single person, except for maybe Jess.
Greg.
Tim, what Succession does so well, Succession does so well, I don't want to get eaten alive in the comments again, is the same thing WWE does so well, right? Which is make you believe in something you know can't happen.
Yes.
I always go back to Sami Zayn, Roman Reigns, Elimination Chamber. We all knew with 100% certainty that Sami was not going to end Roman Reigns' title run, right? But there was moments in that match where you tricked yourself into believing it. And it was the same thing here of watching this. It's like Wile E. Coyote. Like, I know it's always going to blow up in the Roy's faces. You know what I mean? I know it's never going to happen, but they did such a great job of building this thing to such a depressing end, right? Of seeing them all reconcile at the moms, right? To go out into the water, have their little moment, do their little, meal fit for a king, and then see it all fall apart, right? To get to that last vote and see Shiv waver and leave the room and it all fall apart so spectacularly. Like, it was such a perfectly depressing end to Succession.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm just rounding out the same thoughts here. Like, this is probably the most well-written show I've ever watched. I hope that there's something else out there in the future that can rival this, because episode to episode, to me, it's not about the spoilers. It's not about the plot. It's about the dialogue, and it's about the sheer quality of the writing and the experiences these characters share. And I just can't believe from season 1 to 4, which I watched all in the last 2 months, essentially, catching up to watch these week to week, the quality of experience, both from the binging it and from the week to week, I think is unmatched. Like, just the way that this show works in both ways, because you get lost in the story. Some of the stuff, it's a little hard to understand exactly what they're doing because we're not business people like that. But
Neither are they.
it almost doesn't matter. It's like, because every episode just does such a good job of like getting you where you need to be, because it's about the interactions, and to see those interactions grow and mature and at every step feel like, oh, I get this and that makes sense, and that they did this in the other season, so I understand why their relationship is that way, gets us to this point here where little hand touches, hand holds, looks away. Little mannerisms mean so much to us because we know the language that they're speaking to each other, not just through writing, but through the communication. And I can't believe just where it all ended, where like we all saw it coming, but I feel like we all saw different variations of it coming. And the one that they gave us is like, man, that's why I'm not a writer and y'all are writers. Like it was just so satisfyingly depressing to be like, oh man, it's Tom. It's not even Greg. It's Tom at the end of the day, but I feel like it was so poetically done, and where that puts Shiv in the relationship with him and the choices there, and the brothers getting just so royally fucked, and the amount of the camera shots of each character getting their Logan moment of the behind the head with the big music cues. I loved that. But for the final shot of the entire show to be the Logan behind the head shot of Kendall, but then cut away to the side and just show that he's not this fucking badass guy. Like he's a
Looking at his
loser
kingdom
piece
of nothing,
shit.
right?
Oh, what a show.
He is not a serious person.
None of them are.
Well, that was the best part I thought for me personally was, these last couple episodes, watching the Culkin young man, him come together, watching Rome come together and realize that it is all bullshit. They are all bullshit, right? And have that, moment in the room with all, Kendall, and be able to say, this is bullshit, I'm bullshit, you're bullshit, this is all bullshit, and really mean it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Really understand that they are three kids who have been playing house. Really, they don't know anything, that they don't have any original ideas. This is all meaningless and it just doesn't matter, right? And so to get him to have a quote unquote happy ending, right, of being at the bar, drinking Jerry's drink back to where he started, right? Like, okay, cool. Like at least he gets it on that level.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just one of those, again, another heartbreaking moment of them understanding, and especially him kind of coming to the reality that, just because we were born into this family does not mean we were meant to live this life. Like we again, you said it perfectly, like they were playing house. Like they felt like they were fit for this role this whole time, and really they were just playing themselves. And having that realization in that moment right there really is like that moment of freedom for Rome of like, this, like, look at us, dude. We're jokes. Everybody out there knows that we're jokes. Everybody out there has been saying yes to us this whole time because of our name, really.
Right,
and I love, and I love this sort of heartbreaking message and lesson that sometimes the dudes that just say yes and agree with everything and are just there to play along
All the
shoot
way
up
to
to
the
the
top.
top and rise to the top. That is like such a heartbreaking moment, man.
Sure, but is it? I mean, Tom obviously is just a bottom feeder who wants to stay alive no matter what, right? And
He'll suck the biggest dick in the room.
He's put right back in this. I love the parallels between his conversation with Skarsgård and Hugo's conversation with Kendall at the funeral, right? Of like, listen, I don't want a partner. And Hugo's I like more because Hugo totally is accepting of it, right? I just want a dog. And he's like, woof, woof.
Woof, woof.
You know what I mean? And then this one too, where it was like, Skarsgård being like, listen, I don't need a partner in this, right? I just need a fucking front man. And Tom's like, okay, cool, I'll do that. So it's like,
But
he has
before that even worse, Greg, of I think I want to fuck Shiv and I think she'd fuck me too.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's something to easily gloss over. In that moment, you're like, they're like, oh,
Is
man,
Tom
this
about to blow up? It
this
looks like
is
he might
so
blow. Yeah,
uncomfortable. And then it leads to Tom getting the news and acting like the past or the prior 30 minutes of that conversation never happened. Just being like, Greg, we're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
That is like something that's so easy to gloss over because they are sort of fitting in so much dialogue into tight, packed moments. But god damn, I mean, just the handhold in the limousine car ride between Shiv and
The
Tom.
hand rest.
Yeah.
The
There's
hand
no real
rest.
hold. He's just
Give
resting.
Tom Wamsgans all the awards, Matthew McFadden, for all of his hand acting between
Yeah.
this and Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
And again,
10 out of
like
10.
I just watching that handhold, all I can think about is Alexander Skarsgård saying, "I would fuck her if I could." Like,
Yeah.
oh god.
Well, and I think that was the moment where he was like, how far can I push him? How much is what Shiv said, like he'll suck the biggest dick in the room? How much is that true? And like to confront him with like, I want to fuck your wife.
yeah.
And he's just like, it is what it is.
We're-
And he's
we're all
like,
men.
this is my guy. That's exactly the moment that he knew that he had solidified his decision.
Yeah.
I did love that Lawrence from Walter came back in just a passing mention.
I was like, holy shit, are they about to bring him out?
I
Is
know,
he
I was
about to
like,
come out
if
and be the
this
guy
is
who
how
gets it
this
all?
ends, it's going to be great. But I just love that he's still in the conversation because I think that could have also been like a very interesting ending, but a little too telegraphed
And
maybe.
it's one of those things, Joe, that I didn't feel too bothered by. Usually in other shows, whenever old names are brought up from the past, I kind of get the complaint of like, you
Old
know,
game is old.
you're telling and not showing, you know, like
Sure.
where we've heard like, why are you bringing that up? But in this world, it just feels natural because these are still players in this world. These are still names in tech and names in media that are still running corporations and running organizations. So whenever Lawrence from Walter got brought up, I was like, oh yeah, I guess so. He is still out there, you know. It kind of made sense, you know.
And there's only so many people that can fill a CEO role, and it usually ends up bouncing, I feel like, between all of those high-level people, so it
Bob
makes sense
Iger.
that they would try
Yeah,
and
100%.
You know, one of the things I think is worth bringing up, I know we're just jumping around and having fun with the episode, but I did find it like not maybe it's haunting in the moment, but on reflection, because like this is a big one where it finished. Me and Jen talked a little about it, and then I hopped in the shower, and it was very much like the waves of like, oh, this is so fucked up as I went through it. But watching the dinner, right, where they had the video of Connor, Logan, Jess, or not Jess, what's her name? The assistant, Carrie. Thank you so much. And then obviously, you know, Jerry, Frank, all them, and watching them just hanging out, right, and like. Just at a dinner, actually enjoying each other's company when it wasn't about business at all, and singing a song, and the kids, as always, being on the outside of that, right? And I think it is really poignant for all three of them watching that, and obviously by having Carrie there, really putting a timestamp on when it was happening, and really see like, hey, look at we were on the outs, right? We were on the outside of this because of our actions, because of his actions too, Logan's, but because of our own actions, we're on the outside watching, you know, some of the final happy moments our father had, right? And having these things that weren't always horrible and bore on the floor and him screaming obscenities at us. I thought that was like so, because you see them all hold each other, right? And like cry over it. And it's not just like they miss their dad, they miss that moment. They didn't get to have those final moments.
Yeah.
And their final moments were way worse than that. You know,
Sure,
like
yeah.
their final conversations were nowhere near as pleasant. And I think that is the more heartbreaking part about it.
And, you know, going back to that, looking at this season as a whole, like when Logan died in episode 4, it's like, wait a minute, like we have so many more episodes. And I just feel like they used them so perfectly, where each one having the events, having the election, and having the funeral, and having it end with this one, with the board meeting that we've now talked about for so damn long, and the different combinations of who's involved and Gojo and like
Stewie!
everything. Yeah, where's
He's
Stewie at?
so good. I
How many
love
times
him.
is he going to get pulled back into this? But to have it end at the or at least not end, but most of it be at the mom's place, right? And like be with the mom character of all things.
Yeah.
And have all the kids there and have the power dynamic shift with the other storyline being Tom talking to Mattson, and that whole ridiculous like shift in power that like happened. Like I did not see it coming that way. And the moment that Tom's revealed that early in the episode to be the next guy, I was like, we still have too much of this episode. There's no way this sticks. But the fact that that stuck and the ramifications of that decision then rippled through all the other storylines, I just thought was like so impressively done to kind of like keep the like the heel turn, face turn stuff happening in a way that felt completely in control of itself, where we get the siblings kind of almost every combination against each other. Like it's like Usos bloodline shit. But like within a 1 hour episode, like the conversation leading from the moment that Shiv is like talking shit to the boys to them out on the water, and to then the whole being crowned and all that stuff. Like how many flips are there? But it doesn't feel like, it feels like, okay, this is organic and earned. And I just can't believe they pulled that off.
For sure. I mean, these characters, I shouldn't even say the characters, the actors do so much work in this, right? And it is that thing you can talk about, the hand-holding acting, and it's all real, it's all true, and it is that thing of like, I've enjoyed reveling in all the TikToks after this, and they aren't just like this, they are like, oh, I think this is where Shiv flipped. Right here, you see this one look. You know, it's when Kendall sits in her father's chair, and there's this look on her face, and it was like, damn, like you're right. Like to see all these like little glimpses and all these little things the actors did throughout the performances to really like tip their hand on where they were going and why they were going to go that way, and even be in that, you know, side conference room, which again is another thing I'll steal from TikTok of like that the thing of the comment, we were always, yelling outside of his office, and then here they are, episodes later, literally yelling outside of his office, and this but you're in there and you're seeing him fight, and it's like that whole thing of like almost imagining it like a Telltale video game and seeing Kendall constantly pick the like aggro choice of dialogue. We're like, no, this is
I am the eldest boy,
but you're not. See that? Yeah, it was like, man, it was outrageous and painful and so great to see. And even when Kendall goes back in the room, right, and we didn't get to see Shiv go in and vote. He's like, all right, what if we do this? And we're gonna it's over. It was like, whoa, it's finally done. It's finally done.
Yeah, I want to keep talking about it, Andy. I'll get right back to you, but first, here's a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. It's so easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs from you and never take a moment to think about what you need from yourself. I know this from experience, how often it just seems easier to care about others and to keep it moving. But when we spend all of our time giving, it can leave us feeling stretched thin and burnt out. Therapy can give you the tools to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. Some of my very best friends use BetterHelp and love how helpful it can be for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/kindafunny. Andy.
Oh, man. Bad idea coming back to me after the break. I totally just lost it, and he's...
Coheed Camry is just playing in his head.
Here we go. You mentioning all the sort of turns just happening within one episode and kind of like, how is this possible, but it's still being pulled off really well, so I don't really care about the believability factor of it. Just makes you think of like, imagine they have cell phones in Game of Thrones. How many times how many times those turns would have been able to happen because of the...
That's a great point.
Because of the in real time revelations that people are having of... Like, I think that is one of the coolest sort of scenes to happen in real time of...
Greg calling Kendall?
Yes, of Greg calling Kendall, but also just, in the middle of that awful pitch meeting that is just kind of happening at Mom's house. I'm like, oh, God, Mom, are we being pitched right now? What the hell's happening right now? I love that moment of Greg calling Kendall and saying, are we quadding it up again? Are we trying to quad it up?
What do you got?
I'm trying to buy my safety. Yeah, like, I think that moment is so cool, the way it all sort of breaks down. And then delivering the news to Shiv, and it all happens so quickly, but it's still so believable in their acting and their reactions to the moment.
But
And-
even Greg getting his phone out
Yep.
and doing the Google Translate for the conversation and getting that one line where it was like, okay, I have enough info.
Yep.
that was something that struck me at the end of it when people were talking about it, and they talk about it in the inside the actor studio thing at the very end, right?
Yeah.
But how this is a tragedy, it's always been a tragedy. I'm like, I've never thought about that, but that entire sequence of events, right? Tom gets it, then doesn't tell Greg, but then Greg gets the information that kind of can fuck over Tom and gives it. I was like in retrospect, I'm like, oh, this is so Shakespeare. Because that's always what happens, right? Where there's some person who thinks they're doing the right thing that actually fucks over their closest friend or whatever it is and like fucks everything up down the line.
Yeah, man, it's so damn impressive. The lead in from that of like the way that, because it's real time, like you were talking about, and we've seen this a couple times this season with the Connor's wedding and finding about the death of the dad, like that's all like real time shot, and the funeral real time and things like that. With this one, to have this information kind of have to go through them all in real time, them having to make life altering decisions that quickly, like we see all the time that Shiv gets to think about this. Like normally on shows we get crazy information and then a character like goes away and then we go away for a week and think about it, they think about it, you know what I mean? With this, it's like we're seeing her have to decide like, where am I voting, what am I doing, like in the instant. And that goes back to the little acting bits where it's like you see the back and forth, and like I just feel like that was one of the more impressive aspects of this episode in particular. But that led into, for me, the scene with Shiv and the boys after Shiv finds out. When Kendall says, hey, I have the information, whatever, and they're outside, and they had the first starting battle that leads into the back and forth of Dad said it was me. No, Dad said it was me. No, Dad said it was me.
When I
All
was
in
7.
in different ways. And but
He
like,
said it to be last.
but he said it to me last. He said it to me, and he meant it with Shiv, and then with Kendall.
The underline, baby.
Exactly. I just love that the underline bit got turned into like this conversation here, where they're all right, and it all affected them in different ways. And my favorite part of it was him being like, "He told me when I was 7, he shouldn't have done that." And it's like that's just such a powerful statement of like, damn, like this kid, it's not his fault that he's a little piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like he could have been better and fixed it, but like that's where he is. Like he was 7 years old, and for them to be like, yeah, he shouldn't have, and had that have a different meaning. Oh, I love that scene so much.
Yeah, I also just want to applaud the whole cast where, we lose Logan Roy really early, and we've seen what losing a very main central part of the cast, how that affects the rest of the cast, and like I felt no drop off. I just think that's how strong acting and cast is. That's how strong the writing is, and ever since, like, it's really, really hard to lose track of time when you're watching this week to week. When 4 weeks later you hear a sheriff say, "My dad died 3 days ago," and you're like, "Oh shit, I kind of forgot that's how you all are dealing with this in real time."
Well, it's because they got really murky with how much time was passing.
Exactly.
I was telling Jen earlier in the season that I really could have gone for he dies and they say then Friday the next day. And then it was like, if they could do that, because we'd come back to episodes and I was like, whoa, it has a lot changed, a little change. But then it was like at one point in the middle of one of those episodes, like we still have the funeral. I was like, they haven't had the funeral yet? I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Where is it? I thought it was like we were getting days in a row, consecutive days. Like each episode was like one day after the next.
I think that in the end, that's what it is. Yeah, but I think in the
before
moment,
the death, it was a little bit.
Yeah, in the moment, it was a bit more.
But it's also
wonky.
so improbable for us to understand that because they're suddenly flying to Sweden to finish a deal with Mattson.
Well, yeah, but
And to us, you don't just go to Sweden the next day and hop on a PJ. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
there's a lot more to it. So in their world, a lot of that is more natural. But yeah, to then, because I kept on wondering, when are one of these people opposing the Roy family going to say, enough about your fucking dad, dude? Like, because at one point Shiv says, my dad just died.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for one of the opposers, one of the antagonists in that moment to be like, enough, dude, it's been 4 weeks or something. But like, I was expecting the Roy family to use that as ammunition, as like a way to like, how dare you treat me this way? But no, because it's only been 5 days or whatever. Like, that is still such a weird thing to kind of wrap your head around timeline-wise. But I agree with you, Greg. I think that could have been cleaned up a little bit more.
Eventually, I got my sea legs for it, but it
Right.
was just in the moment where I was like, "Oh, what's?" And then it was, "How pregnant is Shiv?"
I think that was the thing that
Yeah.
threw it off of like, how pregnant are you? Because you look maybe more pregnant than you are. But,
Yeah.
And how would you know? Because that doesn't seem that far. Yeah, I feel like that's confusing.
So, big question for you guys.
Ooh,
I watched this thing, and with the way that each character storyline ended, I was like, I am utterly satisfied. Like, there's decisions that I thought were going to go somewhere different, but the decisions made, best case scenario, I think. Do you guys have things that you didn't love character-wise of where they ended?
Didn't love.
Or are you guys
I don't-
satisfied?
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything really specific.
I don't think I don't think I could ever be satisfied with it. Like, it's not that I'm not satisfied. I think it was a great finale. I loved it. I'm glad they went out without me being bored and giving up, and they kill Logan, and then it goes on 4 more seasons, and I'm bored as shit or something like that. It's more the fact that, I do wonder, man, what's Kendall's next move? You know what I mean? Because I definitely, like, when he's walking over there, I was like, is he going to kill himself? Is that going to be the thing? And it's a little too on the nose. And then, of course, there's a story from the actor that in one of the takes, he did cross the thing and the security guard came and got him.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
Holy
yeah,
shit.
Yeah. Yeah, like, how he's like a method actor.
Yeah,
That's his
yeah,
whole-
yeah.
And so in one of the takes, he did go over there, crawl over the barricade, and then I forget the actor or even the character's name, but the bodyguard that Logan, he hired from Logan, did run over.
Colin?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Colin
Yeah.
in character
No
ran over and
way.
stopped him. So it is that thing of like, I totally get it.
Armstrong's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, who's the actor that plays Logan Roy?
Brian
Oh.
Cox.
Brian
Yeah.
Cox was talking in that interview. Was talking about Kendall Roy's sort of
Method
how
hates
hard
it.
he goes into it, and he's like,
Yeah.
"All right, tell him like you're going too hard at this. Like he loves his job and he cares that much, but it's too much.
Yeah.
He commits too hard to it, and it's like, you're thinking too much about this. We're just acting,
Yeah.
like relax, dude.
Jumping off what you're saying there with with the actual ending of it, of you want to see like where he goes, or you could see where he
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
or whatever. I am just so impressed recently with HBO's post-show breakdowns, where
They're so
somehow they
good.
just they're their own pieces of content that deserve awards. Like they're so good, and like they reframe what I just watched in such an amazing light. But the line that he has that just was the most perfect bow on this end of the show here, was saying that like their stories are going to keep going on, but the show's not interested in that.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that is like, oh my God, what a beautiful thing to say. But also I think that it is so great, like both from a meta level of like where we're at storytelling wise, but in the real world, or not real world, in their real world, of how that affects the characters, of like they lost. Like they are no longer the most interesting part of this story. Like that is so freaking like tragic. Like that's the tragic part to me. Like, oh.
But it's also that thing of like, were they ever the most interesting part? Like, you know what I mean? Like, clearly their battle was the thing, but even the battle was all about Logan Roy. And back to Andy's point, right? Of like, I remember when it was happening in that episode, I thought as soon as like Tom called, I was like, oh, what an underhand move. And because I was like, oh, they would have shown him go down. They would have shown him, your dad's really sick. I'm like, he's just fucking with them. He's fucking with them.
And that's what makes you realize how shitty these people are, is that you as a viewer questioned the death.
Totally, right? Yeah,
Totally.
yeah. But it was that thing of like, oh man, how is the show go on without Logan Roy? Because he has been the center point, right? And so even here, it's been, the vacuum of power created by him that they've orbited and done all these things with, right? So it has always been like, even the children themselves, especially how great it was to see all the stuff of going back to the first episode now and how much I fucking hated these people at that time and yada, yada, yada. It's just such a fascinating turn of how they've gone, what they've done. And were they ever the main characters in this thing? No, but they were, but they weren't, but it was, but it's all about the power they wanted.
Yeah.
There is one thing that I'm unsatisfied with, and that's that we're never going to see Willa's cow print couch. Like,
The 2 week itch. The 2 week itch.
the thing that I do appreciate about them taking Logan Roy out so early in the season is that we got some really great Connor moments, which like I
Sure.
feel like last season we got some with he's always been interested in politics from a young age, and so being able to see him kind of evolve with the like squeezing the 1% and everything this season, I think has given Alan Ruck like such a great performance, and even the wedding and him and what like everything I think has been so
He
fun
never
with
liked
him.
me, or what was the line from Connor?
Yeah.
And then-
Something like that,
Yeah, that was just all just incredibly sad. A couple things I want to point out. Something that Kevin mentioned during the commercial break was Greg and where he lies at the end of this, and having that moment, and the Judas moment, essentially,
Yeah, it was
where
great.
called out by Judas. That was such a like. I'm still happy for him. I'm happy for Greg, because I think that, in a way, Tom realizes that he was playing the game in the same way that Tom has been playing the game this whole time as well.
Yeah.
So I think there's that sort of mutual
Pride.
respect, and also like,
Yeah.
you're the person I hate here the least sort of thing between he and Greg.
Well, you're someone I can still push around too.
Right.
Like I know that I'm just an empty suit to these people, but I can still push you around. I can still throw my power on.
But even the fact that he slapped Greg back in
Oh,
that bathroom
that was
scene,
so
it's like,
good.
oh, season 1 Greg never
Yeah,
would have had
yeah,
the balls
yeah,
to
yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
So he's had some character growth.
That was a great little moment, and also just I love the acting from Tom in that moment where you see Greg trying to get back in. The decision's been made.
Oh,
Hey,
slimy
congratulations, man. So what's the plan here? And you see kind of Tom looking at him like, oh, hey man, what's going on? And you could feel the coldness.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I'm worried for Greg in that moment. Like, no, man.
Yeah.
Like everybody's losing, right? Unless you're a fan of Tom. Which I still am. I don't know
I
why
love
I felt
Tom.
the way. It just I think it was just
well, they did such a great
this
job.
is like
of-
Game of Thrones. You hate everything that's happening to everybody, but you love that it's happening to other people.
true.
This episode was such a great build-up of what seemed to be the redemption, the unify of the children. And we've seen this before, and it always falls apart. But this time, it really felt like they had it, right? And then at the last second, they lose it.
Yeah, and I just love that moment between Tom and Greg of like, I think we have enough capital to keep you like that.
Yeah.
It's just it
And the
made,
sticker.
He puts the sticker on his head.
yeah, the sticker of claiming claiming your property back from the household from the Roys. That was just magnificently done, and yeah, I just think this whole season just kind of capped off perfectly. I also want to talk about another heartbreaking moment of throughout the season, the pre-grieving of Kendall and him feeling like he's totally fine. Hey,
Oh,
you
Roman,
good?
Roman.
Oh, Roman, sorry. And hey, you gonna do the funeral speech? Yeah, man, I'm actually pretty excited. Does that make me fucked up? Blah blah blah. And you feel like he's never gonna crack, and then in that moment, trying to deliver the speech at the funeral,
Right after you.
is he still in there? Can we get him out? Like
Oh, that's
all of that
so
was
killer.
just so just heartbreaking. And to go along with that, to make him, as he's bloodied and bruised up and he's got the cut on his forehead and the stitches and everything, making him go take the photo with Mattson to sign the company away. And just like the and then hearing Mattson be like, love you, love you, Roman. Like, oh my God, I could have fucking punched Mattson in that moment. Like, I felt the anger. I felt the hate there.
Oh, I felt the anger for sure from Roman, but I didn't. I really appreciated in the grand scheme of things Stewie and all that, right? Stewie is Team Kendall, votes Team Kendall,
Ken, baby.
and then when he loses, he welcomes Tom and says, "I'm super excited to work with." You know what I mean? Like Stewie gets that it's business, right?
Yeah.
For these kids, it never was business. It was about winning their father's approval. None of them even give a shit about the business. None of them understand the business.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not about that.
You get social media, you get this thing. Like, what?
And all the fucking buzzwords that Kendall would constantly throw around, right?
Yeah.
Like, I got it from Rome for sure, but I really appreciated, like, seeing that. And then even on the flip side of it, of, like, Tom, right? Where he comes in, he's like, Jerry's good in the darkness. We're going to keep Jerry. Fuck Frank. Hey, we're getting rid of him.
Yeah, getting rid of Hugo. Like, he got rid of
that was
all
great
of
too,
the
yeah.
people that, like, truly covered up some of the worst things and kept Jerry and Carolina, who always kind of ran shit on the back.
Yeah, exactly.
Kevin and I were talking about this right before we went live, but I want to ask you guys, what's your read on the Kendall Roman kind of busting up the cut, squeezing the face thing?
I mean, it's super fucked up, and it wasn't from a place of love. It was from a place of Kendall being like, "Oh, you think you look okay," and like you're not. It seems like it starts that way. I saw a whole bunch of breakdowns of like comparing it to when at the end of season 1, Kendall breaks down and Logan holds him and he cries and stuff, and how there was all these different parallels, including the kiss and stuff. But it was very much like Kendall, I think, being like, "No, you're getting fucking line, dog." Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this
Together,
isn't.
yeah.
That's kind of what I gleaned from it as well. I mean, it reminds me of after the funeral breakdown speech happens, and then Kendall goes up and is the hero of the day, and he's the one who held it all together and gave an amazing speech that wowed the crowd, and that, at least that's how he sees it, right?
Right.
And it reminds me of just sort of reiterating that moment of when Kendall tells him, "No, you fucked up, little bro. You fucked up. It's all good. No problem." Like, it's such a kind of like little shot of like, you don't got it. It's all good, man. I got it. Don't worry about it. And that's what it kind of felt like it was mirroring. Like, hey, you're not built for this, dude. It's all good. Like,
Yeah, it was
you have a
him
cut on your
question-
face. You broke down. You went into the crowd. You got your ass whooped. I got this. I can take care of it.
I think it was very much, you know,
Rubbing salt in the wound almost.
Roman questioning it, breaking out again, and I think it was him like, fucking, you're gonna hold this together. Because again, to Kendall, Roman was the wavering vote. He was the one who was gonna fuck this up, right? So it was very much like I've tried as much love as I can give as Kendall, which isn't much because they haven't ever known it, right? Now it is the force of it, right? Disguised as love, that you're gonna fucking hold this together. You're gonna do what I say. We've done this for 4 seasons. You're gonna listen to me, and you're gonna do what I'm fucking telling you to do.
Yeah, I think he's the only one. Like, I think pain is the only way to get through to Roman when he's like spiraling. Like, you even see it the end of the episode before where he just like gets his ass kicked on the street.
Yeah.
And, like, I think that's the thing that snaps him back after he spirals. I think that's all after he sees Jerry, right? Like in the reflections of the window and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah, see
I think
that
all that stuff is so interesting.
that to me was more my read. I feel like the Kendall thing is definitely like I think it's a little bit of both in my opinion, where it's Roman kind of. I think Roman initiated the violence, like from my read of him wanting to be told what to do, and then him like wanting the pain to like for what you're just saying there of like he needed a win. He needed a Roman win of like feeling something in that moment to like understand how to be in control, because he was talking a big talk, but even he didn't even believe it in the moment. And then Kendall doing that, it to me it felt weirdly like not as evil of a thing. Like it came from a bad place, but it's also what Roman wanted and needed in that moment in a weird way.
Interesting.
Where it's like kind of my read on it is Kendall was giving Roman what he wanted and what he was asking for because he knows his brother. That's all very dark and twisted and fucked up, but that's what the show is, and I love that. I love it can be that because Kev, you were saying that people you were talking to had more of a similar read to me too, right?
Yeah, there's like there is a moment in that embrace where what's his face
Roman
kind of starts leaning into it, and like I think that's right. I think that I think it was a moment of Kendall breaking and using force, and then Roman kind of reciprocates and like is just like, okay, this you're in charge now, and I kind of think that he then tries that with Shiv, but like using words,
Yeah.
and that totally backfires on him.
To think that it all started off with him jerking off in front of the windows in these buildings.
Those
Coming down
very
to
windows.
this. Is
Yeah,
wild.
Greg did that on the last one. You guys don't need to see it this time.
Glad I
but-
wasn't here.
That's my Roman impression. Pretty good at impressions too, Andy.
We're gonna wrap this up real quick, but last scene I want to bring up is the kind of like final sibling scene of them all in the office, like fighting, like literally fighting and yelling at each other, and everyone. The amount of cutbacks where they would show that the other room could hear them
Totally.
and then it would cut back and like they would say things that are like the whole conversation of you killed somebody, I didn't kill somebody, did you? I did, but like you lied to us, all that stuff, like. They all heard that, and I feel like they just did such a good job of like using the camera and the audio to show us like, yeah, they can hear, and then they show something crazy, and then you're like, oh my god, they can hear this, and the intensity of that conversation of seeing like the moments where Shiv and Roman are like, oh fuck Kendall, because they don't even know if he's telling what's
fake,
real,
yeah,
what's not,
yeah.
and that's where they end. Like, oh dang. Any closing thoughts, you guys, on this?
I wasn't expecting them to bring up the you killed somebody. You can't be the CEO. You killed somebody. I was not expecting that to be brought up again. And when it got brought up again, I was like, oh, this really isn't going to happen. Like, we're definitely not going to have a last second Shiv turn to like back to the sibling side. That was, it just solidified more and more that these characters deserve this tragic ending with essentially Kendall being like, no, I lied about it. I was in a tough spot. I just lied about it. There was a kid, but I wasn't even in the car. Like, seeing him then deny this thing that happened 4 years ago at this point was really like, oh god damn, you guys are terrible, man. Like, and the audience gets to then in that moment go, no, we deserve this bad ending. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I thought that was going to be the final nail in Kendall's coffin, but I thought it was going to happen way earlier in the episode. So once we get to the kitchen scene, I was like, okay, we made it through, and I wasn't expecting Shiv to throw it in at the last minute like that. Is like such a perfectly like emotional, like clearly not thinking about things Shiv moment of like, I've been harboring this, and like this is why I think you're not ready for it, and you'll never be ready for it.
But also just like a reaching kind of.
Like any excuse,
sure.
I'm giving you everything
Yeah.
I've got at this
Yeah,
point.
and remember that thing 10 years ago when like it's just like reaching for the next bad thing you
It
can
was the
think of.
panic, right? Of
Yeah.
her statement was just, I think you'll be bad at this.
Here's why I'm
After so much
justifying
saying he would be good at it, right?
Yeah.
And then it is just the fact that, well, at least my interpretation, right, is that it's just the fact she didn't get it. It's that reality setting in that here's dad's chosen one, even though it wasn't dad, but it is. Here's the one who gets to go carry dad's flame. And you get to that point of, after she's wrestled with it for so long, right, and what her and Tom are going to do in general, right, of like, well, do I want to see it bequeathed to my brother who has all these different reasons and we're always on different pages and yada, 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 or do I do this last second Hail Mary, fuck it all up, and it goes to my husband, who I then stick with and continue the cycle, obviously, of how horrible all this is. But she's still in the running that way, right? Like, there still is a weird... She's connected to the Roy brand. Her brothers are no longer, unless they stay on and do stock stuff or whatever.
She's
but like,
fucked either way.
of course. So like, which way do you want to be fucked?
Yeah,
This way,
and
at least
she
has power. That's what it's all about with Shiv. I saw a lot of people being like, yeah, like, oh my, not a lot. There was a great discourse, a great conversation about like, oh my God, what a horrible ending for this woman who's been this feminist icon. Everyone's like, she sucked this entire
icon.
show. Like, what are you talking
Yeah,
about?
when
Like,
was she?
remember when she was like covering up cruises and not caring about people? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, what that is. Like,
Shiv
she's
has-
never been about anything about her femininity. It's all been about power and how she can have power and maintain power and get more power.
There you go. Let us know in the comments below what you thought of the finale of Succession. Remember, we'll be back with Marvel's Secret Invasion just a few short weeks, but until then, and to give me a fuck off.
Oh, fuck off.